And it's Aunt Vanessa. We know that in the FNAF novels there's a character who ends up being revealed to be a robot, that person being the main character, Charlie, Henry's daughter, the one who gets killed by Aft and then goes on to possess the puppet. But this begs the question, since it's now established that characters can be robots without even knowing it, is there someone in the game series who could have this be the case? And some people now are thinking that it's the case with Ballora and Vanessa from Security Breach. While yes, they're both female characters, when you think about it, the two have more in common than you think. Firstly, if Vanessa is a robot, it would explain how William started controlling her through the virus, since sentient code shouldn't really be able to affect organic matter like the brain. Also in the books, Charlie's robot is also revealed to be Baby, who can shift between her forms using the pins that we see in the trailers, you know, like the pins that and the blueprints and yeah, so the technology is there, especially when both Baby and Ballora come from the same group of animatronics. And at 9, Mother Figure. Some also believe that whether she is Vanessa or not, that she was intended to be a form of mother figure for Afton's kids once their mother left or died or whatever happened to her. Maybe she never even existed. This is based off the mini-arenas that Ballora basically is a mother towards, and the fact that there would be one for each Afton kid and then another spare. Now this could be William just having mommy issues, or it could be a secret 4th Afton kid like I've proposed in the past. And if that is the case, perhaps Vanessa was intended to be that kid, hence why she'd be a robot. Or Vanessa was just the human version of Ballora so the kids wouldn't freak out about having a literal robot that looked like a robot as a mom. But then again, it could just be Afton wanting to be treated like a kid and have someone to hold him and make the pain go away. That's definitely not the healthiest option, but it's something Sigmund Freud would be proud of. Also guys, if you're enjoying the video and you want to see more, be sure you hit that like button and subscribe because we put out daily FNAF content whether I want to or not. So do it. And at 8, Surrogate Family. The mother figure idea could have been extended to the rest of the Funtime Animatronics or those that would have been at Circus Babies. Because while yes, the animatronics were made to grab kids and their restaurants was in essence a murder den built after his old one closed, Afton did at least make Circus Baby for his daughter, or at least in her image or based on what she likes. Since after all, his kids was his prime demographic. It's a whole other can of worms too, let's not get into that. His family was basically his focus group, and maybe that's why Ballora is so slim thick, he was talking to Mike a little too much. However, this could have been the downfall of the business, since if he did actually base some of the animatronics off his kids, that could have been their downfall. Especially because Funtime Freddy, Foxy, and Baby each represent one of his kids, with Freddy being Crying Child thanks to his unfortunate incident at the sister location, Foxy being Mike because, you know, Foxy bro, and Baby being Elizabeth for other obvious reasons. It could have also been William's ultimate undoing if you think about it too, because like Mike, because Mike is the one who stopped him. Yeah. And at 7, Lonely Afton. Or maybe this was never for his kids. After all, Afton is a man, albeit a deranged one, but even the most deranged men have needs. So maybe Ballora was a little more than a mother figure for the kids, or at least intended to be more. After all, we know she represents someone that William didn't let into his life, whether that be after his wife's exit from his life or Elizabeth's death. But even then, if we start to think about it, thanks to the fast facts found in FNAF AR, we know that the Funtime Animatronics were among some of the first ever animatronics made by Afton. And if this was the case, Ballora would have been around before Elizabeth got caught by Baby, especially if she was made for Circus Babies. So after Afton's wife or baby mama leaves him or dies, he finds a woman who wants to help him. However, he doesn't let her into his life and instead makes a robot version that won't judge him and can probably do other things as well, because let's face it, William wasn't in the brightest mindset. And if you think about it, there could be a reason Ballora is flexible. Obviously, to help out with work around the house. Where's your mind at? It's gotta get down low to get up in the attic. You know, it's a small attic. You gotta do like the crab walk. It's easier with an animatronic. What were you thinking? Sickos. And at 6, Missing Children. We also learn in the FNAF novels, along with the fact that Charlie is a robot and is also Baby, that the Funtime Animatronics are actually possessed. But instead of them being filled with agony from specific children, they're full of the original remnant created by the first 5 missing children. You may think this throws a wrench into the timeline, however, they were just simply modified to contain the remnant instead of being created with it, so the timeline still holds. But does this mean that the Ballora from the games is also possessed with the agony from the 5 missing kids? Candy Cadet in FNAF 6 Animatronics does talk about 5 things becoming 1, and that only really makes sense with the 5 missing children becoming remnant to be injected into the Funtimes. But then that's still confusing because then, like, would it exclude Baby? But it would also make sense since the robots do end up coming together in the form of Ennard to have their souls be complete. But people also think that she's possessed by Mrs. Afton, even though there is not evidence for that in the slightest. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down below. Halfway through into number 5, Mrs. Emily. Even if Ballora isn't Mrs. Afton, who does she represent? Some believe that it could be Mrs. Emily, Henry's wife, the mother of Charlotte of the puppet. Now, why would they think this? Because of William's kill list. Now, Susie may have been the first of the missing children to die, but it's still widely accepted that Charlotte is the first kill overall, which makes it the most significant. After all, killing your partner's daughter is definitely out of the norm, kind of. But most murders are committed through intense emotion, with love being a very common one. So why would William kill Charlotte out of love? Because of her mother. You see, Charlotte, when she was killed, was very young, probably around 3 like her novel counterpart, which means that Charlotte's parents have been together for at least 3 years, and before that, she could have been with anyone. For example, trying to be with William in the aftermath of his wife's death. She could have met Henry this way too, and their child would be a burning reminder of what William had missed out on. Or maybe Charlotte was keeping Mrs. Emily with Henry, so William got rid of her, hoping that he could be Mr. Steal Yo Girl. I don't even think Scott knows at this point. Straight up. And at 4, voice line meaning. Ballora's song has always been an interesting point to talk about. With lines like, "All I see is an empty room, no more joy, an empty tomb," we figured out pretty quickly that William was mourning someone. However, some theorists look at the song in an entirely different way now, since after Ultimate Custom Night we got to hear Ballora say, "Admit it, you wanted to let me in." And while that could remain, "you wanted to let me into your life," what if it's more literal than that? What if it's actually he didn't let someone inside somewhere? Maybe whoever Ballora represents wanted to help William in his quest for answers, wanted to help him kill, and he didn't trust them enough, or maybe they were stuck outside in the cold and ended up freezing to death because William was too selfish or something. I mean, there are also signs to indicate something like that. Maybe not as extreme, but Ballora's song also says it's so good to sing all day, to dance, to spin, to fly away. And who would say that to a mourning man unless they were at least as sadistic and horrifying as him? I don't know. There's also the fact that she could just be referring to Springtrap because he was stuck in the walls. He was hiding inside the walls when there's music in those halls. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Frozen Solid. Speaking of being frozen solid, could FNAF AR be giving us hints as to how Mrs. Afton or William's baby mama bit the dust, kicked the bucket, played her last song, ended the show, pushed up daisies, slept with the fishes, pegged it, the big adios, the forever nap? Because let's be honest, there has to be some reason for these godforsaken skins in the game other than to keep people playing and spending money on microtransactions, right? Okay, well maybe not, but it's fun to speculate. Ballora currently has 2 skins in FNAF AR, Arctic Ballora and Clockwork Ballora, obviously not including her original form, and both of these could be related to potential deaths. Clockwork is slightly more complicated, but most likely would represent dying of age, since, you know, a clock tells time. However, from what we know, William at that point wasn't really that old, so his wife or partner probably wouldn't have been that old either. So what about Arctic Ballora? Well, this could mean many things, but most likely freezing. Perhaps she fell into a lake that she thought had enough ice on top of it and froze, or maybe she just got stuck in the cold. Maybe she was an adventurous person and tried climbing Mount Everest or something, or got stuck while skiing and froze. We don't know. And while it may be a little far-fetched, it's still fun to think about, since there is no evidence for what happened to William's baby mama, or even if they were married. We don't know. Penultimately, in at number 2, the first. As I mentioned earlier, thanks to the fast facts found in FNAF AR's files, we know that the Funtime Animatronics are among some of the first robots built by Afton, which means that they were built around the Springlock era. While this doesn't do much for the timeline because, I mean, we had already placed it around there, the question remains, who was the first out of the Funtime Animatronics? And actually, some think that it's Ballora. Some think that thanks to William losing someone he loved, that he made Ballora as a replacement, but then had to create the other Funtimes due to questions from his kids or something similar like his neighbors, cause let's be honest, I know what you were thinking during number 7, alright? And that is definitely what his neighbors would have thought as well, especially his friends. So if he builds other robots in this set, it instantly makes it work and not a personal project, I guess I should say. And with Ballora being the first of them, it makes sense that she wouldn't have any of the other abilities, like a claw or a containment chamber to seal away items, since, you know, he wouldn't have thought of that at the time. He only wanted to seal one thing away. His grief. Get your mind out of the gutter. Finally, in at number 1, Clara Afton. And here we go again with the good old-fashioned Clara Afton. That sounds kind of like a Wild West thing, but if it was a Wild West thing, it would be Clara Clayton. Haha. Yeah, it's for you Back to the Future fans. Quite a few people believe that Ballora is actually possessed by Mrs Afton, even though there is no signs that indicate such, but the community doesn't really care about that. They also seem to think that this mysterious woman is also named Clara, and that's due to the wonderful world of fake TV in a fake world. The character of Clara popping up in Sister Location is certainly not something to ignore, even if it is on a fake soap opera called The Immortal and the Restless. However, the name is not confirmed. Perhaps if we knew the actor who played Clara in that show, that could make more sense, but just because a woman is talking to a guy wearing purple doesn't mean that she's Mrs Afton, okay? If I wear purple and I talk to Amanda, does that mean that Mrs Afton is now Amanda Afton? No, because my name is Connor, not William. However, the character a lot of people seem to be comparing to William, justifiably may I say, is named Vlad in the show. So why would a character who represents William be called Vlad, but the character meant to represent his wife uses her actual name? It makes no sense, okay? Until it's confirmed, I'm not calling her Clara Afton, so stop telling me to in the comments. Stop saying that's her name, okay? It's not confirmed. Knock it off, alright? Good.
Number 10, eyes closed. Often when you see Ballora in the game, she appears to have her eyes closed. While other animatronics often have their eyes wide open, there is something unsettling about the fact that her eyes are often closed. It's like she's lulling you into a sense of safety. You don't think that she's always watching you, but even with her eyes closed, she kind of seems to be. Because she can still hear you. Number 9, Ballora. Due to her eyes being closed, some have actually theorized there is a connection between her and the mythological demon or creature known as Ballora. The fact that her eyes seem to be permanently shut and even unable to open at times is a fact that people focus on, and this, as well as the similarity to her name, Ballora, is where the theory comes from. Though it is more likely that her name is simply a reference to the fact that, you know, she's a ballerina. In Irish mythology, a Ballora is a giant cyclops who only opens its single eye when it wants to destroy its enemies. Otherwise, it is known for having its eyes shut because it's basically shooting a beam out of it when it's open. In Dungeons & Dragons, a Ballora is a demonic creature, often pictured with horns and wings. People also might be pulling the name Ballora from Finn Balor's demon persona in WWE. Does Scott like WWE? Could there be a connection there? I don't know, but when I read this theory, I definitely was like, wait, like demon like Finn Balor demon? Also, is it weird that I know that? Number 8, motivation. In the Sister Location game, you are forced to shock Ballora into dancing at the beginning of the game, forcing her to perform. The frightening thing about this is the fact that you already know from the previous games that the animatronics are often out to kill you. So being forced to shock Ballora into performing seems like a bad idea, and makes you feel like you are definitely going to end up dying on this job. Which you probably will, at least a few times. Or you'll probably come close. Number 7, singing. Ballora is said to be a talented dancing and singing animatronic. Her goal is to get children active and dancing to balance out all that pizza that they enjoy. You get to experience her singing firsthand in Sister Location, where you will hear her sing out in a very creepy voice. She appears to mainly focus on one melody, and one of the lines that you can hear her sing in the game is as follows: "I roam these halls alone all day, but now you're here, friend, and pray." Ugh. Pray, I don't like that. She also sings about hearing your flesh and bones. Yikes. Number 6, more aware. Some animatronics in the game seem to speak to you through pre-recorded lines. In fact, a good number of them do that. Circus Baby, however, is not one of them, as she is possessed by William Afton's daughter, Elizabeth, and seems to be more in control of her thoughts, her words, her actions. However, Ballora also displays sort of this level of awareness when compared to the other animatronics. She talks to you when you are in the vents underneath her gallery, and her words and phrases seem to be outside of any pre-recorded voice recordings that she might be programmed with. This either means that Ballora could also be possessed, or that she simply has more advanced programming than some of the other animatronics. Number 5, sharp teeth. Despite not being a nightmare animatronic and not being animal themed either, Ballora oddly enough still has razor sharp teeth in her mouth for some reason, which mostly appear to be there in the game to frighten you, as I couldn't really see any practical use for them, unless it's killing the children that she teaches how to dance, like maybe because she eats them. She has a few more human or dull looking teeth in front, but behind them are rows and rows of razor sharp teeth. So watch out, don't put your hand in there. Number 4, her different jump scares. All of her jump scares are different, but equally terrifying. Some are jump scares where her face and eyes remain closed, while in others her face actually simply opens up but her eyes still remain closed. But she also has jump scares where both the inside of her face and her eyes are also revealed. The only thing that isn't scary about this fact, that she actually has really, really pretty, like, purple eyes. Is it just me? I always wanted to have purple eyes when I was younger. I was like, man, I wish I was born with purple eyes. Then I realized that's not really a thing. There aren't really people that are born with purple eyes. Number 3, Ennard. In Sister Location, Ballora ends up getting scooped out, and her parts are actually used to help create Ennard. Her endoskeleton is used to form his upper body, and her eyes are actually used to help him disguise himself more successfully as a human, as hers are smaller and more human-like than most of the other animatronics. Number 2, Crawling. Scott actually has confirmed that Ballora actually only has 2 ways to move. She's either gliding around on the tracks, dancing gracefully, or when not on the tracks is forced to crawl around on all 4s, like some kind of creepy spider. He also confirmed that she can climb up walls like Mangle. Talk about facts to keep you up at night. Now I'm just gonna be laying in bed at night thinking that when I wake up I might just see Ballora crawl onto my ceiling, have her face open up at me. Ugh. Number 1, Mini Arenas. During the game Sister Location on night 3, you also get introduced to Ballora's Mini Arenas. These are small, kind of alternate versions of Ballora. They don't really quite look like her, kind of like her minions, except that they often seem to be more busy antagonizing Ballora, like when they're holding up her pieces, as opposed to helping her. Except that they kind of seem to be more busy antagonizing Ballora as opposed to always helping her. On night 3, you see them holding up Ballora's dismantled parts on the stage, prompting the AI who guides you through the game to seem content in the fact that Ballora appears to be in working order. She's not. It does not register the fact that she's dismantled, it only registers the fact that she's on the stage, and mistakes her presence for her being functional, so apparently that's good enough for it. Later on, the mini arenas will become freed from Ballora and proceed to come after you. Number 10, Technical Difficulties. Proving just how terrifying she can be in Ultimate Custom Night and during the Sister Location Custom Night, Ballora, when she appears, will mess with your cameras. She approaches from either one of 2 halls, but when she does, the cameras become disabled. Apparently Ballora is some kind of tech whiz or emits some kind of frequency or other technological waves of some kind, 5G, that interferes with your cameras. The only time you'll see her in Custom Night is when it's too late and she has already jump scared you. Number 9, Listen carefully. The key to avoiding Ballora's jump scare in Ultimate Custom Night is in attentive listening. What you'll hear in your headphones, this is FNAF after all, sound cues galore, so I'm assuming you will be wearing headphones, is Ballora's music, but you won't be able to see her. You'll want to close the door on the side you hear her music coming from before she can attack. If you succeed, the only way you'll know is with another sound cue, a thud meant to signify her leaving. And you'll obviously know if you fail, cause well, you'll be dead. Number 8, Shocking Revelations. In Sister Location, you are of course forced into shocking Ballora in order to get her to perform and make sure she is in operating order, so she can once again entertain children during the next day. If you've seen my part 1 of this list or played Sister Location, you'll know what I'm talking about. Something, however, that we have yet to mention is what happens on night 2 when you shock Ballora. Only Ballora's shadowy silhouette can be seen when you illuminate her stage, and you are forced to shock her in order to motivate her into performing. However, when you do so, all you will hear is a garbled, creepy, demonic voice which is emanating from the malfunctioning hand unit. Initially, it doesn't sound like anything is being said intentionally, just a bunch of creepy sounds. However, one Redditor plugged the audio into the audio recording program Audacity to see if they could make sense of it, and discern if the voice was actually saying anything resembling words. Upon increasing the pitch and speed, they did uncover some actual words being said there. To them, they said it sounded like argumentative, standards, elevation, passive, heights. However, what these words actually mean in regards to the bigger picture, or if Scott intended them to be there or be found at all, remains a mystery. Number 7. Relation to Circus Baby. A theory that some have is that Circus Baby is the younger sister to Ballora, implying that the two were made in relation to each other somehow, perhaps both being created and handmade by William Afton himself. The other theory is that Elizabeth herself had an older sister, who we haven't met yet but who also died, and whose soul was trapped or stored within Ballora somehow, preserving the other young girl. She possibly even died after Elizabeth did, and was perhaps placed there initially to keep her sister's soul company. Number 6. Ballora Stage. One of the creepiest parts of the introduction to the location and game mechanics in Sister Location is when you're examining the stages. The first stage you are forced to illuminate is Ballora's. The fact that her light and the other stage's lights aren't just always on makes the whole thing even more unsettling. That anxiety that you feel building the first time you go to turn on that light, and then the crazy thing is how muddy the lighting or thickness of the windows seems, making the stage still appear as though it were being viewed through a vignette. Even when Ballora and her mini-Renas appear after their administered shock, the whole scene still appears disturbing. Number 5. Dancing. Last time we talked about how talented of a singer Ballora was, but of course being modeled after a ballerina, she is also known for being a talented dancer. She often glides and spins around her stage. She is meant to encourage children to get active and to enjoy pizza, implying that you could join Ballora for a dance-themed or ballerina-themed birthday party. Though I'm not sure how, if you rented her out, she would manage to dance, as she does apparently have very specific requirements when it comes to performing. Number 4. Travel by tracks. One of these specific requirements, of course, is that she needs to have tracks to dance on. Ballora actually glides around on tracks in her studio, which is how she manages to spin and perform. Without her tracks, Ballora can't even stand, and instead crawls around disturbingly on all fours. I'm not sure how exactly she would perform without said tracks, or if it's even possible. Though fortunately, or unfortunately, her super creepy mini-Renas don't seem to need tracks in order to move and prance around like Ballora does. Yay? Number 3. Room for one more. Speaking of mini-Renas, okay, so this isn't directly related to Ballora, but I'm not sure if the mini-Renas will get their own list, and they are affiliated with her, so I figured it would make sense to include this story here. Do you want the mini-Renas to get their own list? Or do you feel as though they deserve their own list? Let us know your thoughts on that in the comments below. I don't know if we actually have enough facts for them for a top 10, but the mini-Renas are definitely terrifying, so I feel like they're worthy of having their own list. This story features Ballora's naughty mini-Renas appearing in the 3rd Fazbear Frights book that was released earlier this year, titled 1:35 a.m. In the story Room for One More, a security guard named Stanley spots them while working on his desk. Later he notices that he feels sick, and realizes the mini-Renas must have been climbing inside his body while he was asleep on the job. As he attempts to head to the hospital, his body fails him and he falls to the floor. A final mini-Rena approaches him, asking if there's room for one more. Terrified, he screams as the mini-Rena climbs into his mouth. Yikes. Number 2. Mrs Afton? While some theorize that Ballora is like the big sister to Circus Baby, others believe that the two have an even closer relationship. They believe that Ballora is actually Circus Baby's mom, or rather that the spirit within Ballora, which gives her consciousness and awareness, belongs to William Afton's wife and Elizabeth Afton's mother, Mrs Afton, sometimes referred to as Clara Afton, given the name by fans after the character Clara, from the soap opera scenes of The Immortal and the Restless, featured in Sister Location. People believe that Clara's story from The Immortal and the Restless is indeed a somewhat reference to the story of Mrs Afton and her husband William. This has yet to be confirmed, but some believe she died in a car accident following the death and loss of the rest of her family, and somehow her soul maybe became trapped within Ballora. How that happened, we have no idea, but you know, could be possible. Number 1. Model of? Another theory, which I think makes more sense given what limited information we have on the Afton family dynamic, is that Ballora was created after Mrs Afton's death and was simply modeled after her. Perhaps she herself was a ballerina. Some people believe that Ballora was created to be a vessel for Mrs Afton's soul as she was dying, but because she died before the animatronic was made, she was unable to possess it. In that case, it would be perhaps some other form of remnant that possesses or haunts the animatronic ballerina we know as Ballora, granting her life. Number 10. Late Edition. Ballora is thought of by some to be a late addition to the game's sister location, a character who was never really intended to appear and was possibly rushed at the last second in order to be finished in time for the game's release. This is scary in the sense that if this theory is true, we almost got a game without any Ballora, which would be awful considering how important some consider her to be relative to lore and how popular she is among fans for multiple reasons. Why do people think that Ballora was a late addition to the game? Well, because she has no making of available in the extras. This is odd and stands out to people as, other than Ennard, Ballora is really the only other main animatronic to not have one included. Number 9. Good animatronic. This one admittedly is not that scary, but the antithesis to it is. What if Ballora was never intending to hurt you in the games and you were simply made to think that way? Sure, she can still jump scare you, but it could be because she has been herself manipulated by Circus Baby into thinking that you are a threat. After all, Ballora doesn't really seem to be malicious in nature. She genuinely likes to sing and dance and may not even have a vengeful spirit possessing her. Is it possible that she inherently would not think to do harm to you? Is it possible that she too is being manipulated by Circus Baby into thinking that you are the enemy, just as you think she is a threat? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are a big fan of Ballora, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. The Last Animatronic. Some believe that because Ballora doesn't have a making of feature in the extras menu of Sister Location, that this gives up some information as to not just when she was made and added into the game, but when she was made in canon. Some have taken this as a hint that Ballora was one of the latest inventions of William Afton in comparison, at least, to the other FNAF Funtime/Sister Location animatronics. Some believe that Ballora was the last animatronic in this grouping to have been made, which if you believe that she has any connection to Mrs Afton might actually make some sense, assuming that you feel that Mrs Afton disappeared following the death of Elizabeth for one reason or another. Number 7. Mrs Afton's Soul. So one of the prominent theories when it comes to Ballora is that she is the wife of Mrs Afton, in spirit form at least. Some believe that Mrs Afton died. A lot of people actually believe that this happened as the result of a car crash due to a popular FNAF music video that circulated and somehow became considered canon by fans, despite the fact that this has yet to be confirmed in-game or in any of the books. Regardless, many fans have theorized that following her death, Mrs Afton's soul lingered on this earthly plane within Ballora, and that Ballora is, in essence, possessed by Mrs Afton. The song Ballora sings in Sister Location has often been used as evidence to support these claims, although there are a few different explanations for those lyrics. Number 6. Not big on pretend. Circus Baby at one point in the game remarks how Ballora never learned how to pretend. Some believe this is an indicator towards Ballora's personality, and have even implied that Ballora does not like to play pretend because she is too mature and more grown up than Circus Baby in terms of her personality. Others have theorized that Ballora is simply not a fan of playing pretend, and for this reason did not like Circus Baby's plan, sensing early on that it might be flawed. It also makes sense that Circus Baby would be inclined to pretend though, considering that she seems to have kinda two sides to her, and also the fact that it's heavily implied that she can shapeshift to a certain degree, disguising her appearance, depending of course on which continuity we're looking at, as to how much she can shapeshift. Number 5. Replacement Mrs Afton. Another theory suggests that Ballora was simply made to fill in for Mrs Afton, filling the void in William Afton's life after his wife left him. This also seems to be supported by the lyrics to Ballora's song, which seem to be quite sad and lonely in nature overall. Ballora mostly talks about being alone, implying that someone refuses to acknowledge her presence, which makes her lonely. However, the final lyrics in the song suggest that Ballora finds joy in her performance. She sings, "It's so good to sing all day, to dance, to spin, to fly away." This could even imply if Ballora was meant to be a stand-in for Mrs Afton, programmed to be similar to her, that Mrs Afton found joy elsewhere in her life. And so, with William making her sad, she chose to, as the lyrics say, fly away. Perhaps Mrs Afton left William, which is why he created Ballora. He was sad about her leaving, and so Ballora is meant to be some kind of creepy replacement? Number 4. Loss. As I said, the meaning behind the lyrics to Ballora's song have been a topic of heated debate amongst fans, and the idea that these lyrics refer to Mrs Afton speaking out with her own voice from within Ballora, or simply repeating Mrs Afton's own thoughts as a sort of animatronic version of her, are not the only theories to explain them. Some have also speculated that the lyrics could refer to the loss of a child, and whether or not Ballora is Mrs Afton could be a reference to Mrs Afton's and perhaps even Mr Afton's grief grief. All I see is an empty room. No more joy, an empty tomb could specifically be a lyric referring to the death of either Elizabeth or that of crying child, or perhaps both. Number 3. An empty room, an empty tomb. What if Ballora was intended to be an animatronic to hold Mrs Afton's soul, but instead was unable to fill that role before Mrs Afton left or died prematurely? We still don't really know why William Afton creates animatronics and seemingly is obsessed with the mad science of bonding souls to them. Most believe that this obsession comes from a place of William wanting to discover the secrets of immortality. If he loved his wife, if he even had a wife to begin with, or a true love, is it possible that Ballora was made for her? This comes from the theory that Circus Baby may have been made for Elizabeth in a similar way, but where he succeeded with Elizabeth, perhaps he failed with Ballora, so she is an empty vessel. Perhaps the lyrics in her song refer to her own self. An empty room, no more joy, an empty tomb. What if Ballora is the empty room? What if the tomb is empty because the body ended up elsewhere due to some kind of failed bonding process? Number 2. Mrs Afton's Agony. On the other hand, maybe Ballora isn't so empty. After all, my previous point was just based on one of many different interpretations of Ballora's song lyrics. Something else you may have noticed about Ballora is just how aware of her surroundings she seems. True, she can't see because her eyes are closed, but she can hear and seemingly feel things. Maybe not physical things. I'm not saying that she has the sense of touch, but she can feel emotions. Circus Baby refers to her as being afraid in the game and also comments, as I said before, that Ballora never learned how to pretend. Probably either because she didn't want to or because she found it too difficult. Either way, pretty much everything here makes her sound fairly human. In the Fazbear Frights books, we learn that agony is powerful. So powerful in fact that you don't even need a soul to give animatronic sentience if you have enough of it. Enough agony. Perhaps it was Mrs Afton's grief and agony over the loss of her marriage or her children that then possessed Ballora. If that is true, Ballora could exist and have sentience while Mrs Afton could still be alive and out there still somewhere. Number 1. Purple Gal. Perhaps Ballora isn't Mrs Afton, but even if she isn't, she could still be a companion for William. After all, something that many people have noticed is, well, how purple she is. She has purple eyes, purple hair, and a complete purple design, head to toe purple. Do you know who else is known for the color purple in the franchise? Like a lot of purple? Yep, William Afton himself, Purple Guy as we sometimes call him. So what if Ballora wasn't actually Mrs Afton in the sense of representing his wife or being his wife incarnate, but instead was simply a creation of William's to act as his own companion? Colors are generally used in cinema and in storytelling to help connect concepts, characters, and denote themes. In this case, the connection could simply mean that these two are connected as creator and animatronic, or companions in some other way. We all know how much colors tend to be pointed out and utilized in both the FNAF books and in the games, and if any of William's children are actually animatronics in disguise, like we've been theorizing on the channel, it's possible that Ballora is still in a way their mother. She was just never human to begin with.
In a 10 hybrid Ballora. It's not that I shudder at the thought of hybrid Ballora, but more the fact that who would combine Baby and Ballora in such a way? Like, what purpose does this serve other than just creeping me out? It's an abomination. These are two characters that I never intended on or wanted to see together. It just sets me on edge. This is like the grown-up version of Baby, and her name is literally Baby, so it feels wrong. And I don't know what else to tell you. It's Baby's visuals on Ballora's body with some added thickness, and it's making me all sorts of confused. But one question still remains. Is Elizabeth possessing this, or when the creator was making this, did they intend on it being a separate character entirely? And why are they thicker than my Villaggio thick sliced bread? I don't know. It's actually, they're thicker than Kim K. And at 9, Phantom Ballora. The Phantom Animatronics are where most of the scare in FNAF 3 comes from. They jump scare you out of seemingly random times, scaring the player and distracting them by giving Springtrap a chance to move. But even though they're the main source of scares, we only get a few animatronics to take on that ghostly mantle. But even though the game comes later in a timeline sense, Sister Location wasn't released before FNAF 3, therefore we get no Sister Location animatronics in this game. But that didn't stop people from making new ones. And out of all the custom Phantom animatronics I've seen, Ballora Ballora is probably the most tame, only given the texture and maybe a couple missing limbs, but not much else going on. So this makes it not as scary and probably not as unsettling as Hybrid Ballora, but at least it's all Ballora, which makes it more suited for this list. And it ain't stylized Ballora. No matter who creates a more stylized version of Ballora, they always end up looking more humanoid, and I don't know about you, but I prefer my robots to not be humanoid. No matter, the stylized Balloras of the world are creepy as hell and give off some ultimate Austin Powers fembot vibes. And while this video already wasn't good for my search history, these more humanoid versions of an already feminine robot are going to be giving me some weird ads. Imagine if FNAF had a dating sim that was advertising itself in the way to like those ads that are like local MILFs in your area looking to chat, but it's like animatronics in your area looking to stuff you. Something like that. That would be hilarious. And you know what? You can have that idea for free. God knows Phasmophobia didn't pay me for anything that I said in that video, so I guess everything's pretty much fair game. Wait. Phasmophobia's Steam page went live in March of 2020. So they announced the game before that video came out? All of my anger has been a lie? Well, damn. And at 7, Diment Rescue Ballora. Resident Evil recently came out with another installment in their classic well-known series. And while a video about it may have flopped on this channel, the game certainly didn't. And neither did male fans after seeing Lady Diment Rescue, apparently. Since there was literally, mods just a week after release. Maybe less, actually. It's like when Skyrim first came out and there were all the mods about removing items from NPCs. But the character combined with a FNAF animatronic that already caused kids to have mommy issues is just another level of weird. Like Barney Stinson would be proud of this. I don't need to describe this, okay? It's Lady Dimitrescu's outfit on Ballora, but damn, it's terrifying if you think about it. Someone please Dimitrescue me from this nightmare. I apologize. And at 6, Motorcycle Ballora. This is on the list because it's weird. It's not scary, but it's weirder than the previous ones were scary, so it's gonna go higher. Someone turned Ballora into a motorcycle and I don't know why. Look, while I'm all for whatever you're into, okay, no judgment zone as long as it's legal and doesn't put anyone in danger, this obsession with riding Ballora is kind of putting me on edge. It puts my mental stability in danger and honestly it's already dancing on the fence, so even the slightest push can send me spiraling into a well of even more FNAF madness. And I don't mean like more FNAF madness as in like more FNAF on this channel, no, I just mean I'll go crazy. But like, what? Why is this a thing? Why were you compelled to do this? Who hurt you? And what the hell is her back wheel made out of? Halfway through it at number 5, Broken Ballora. While there is already a Broken Ballora in FNAF AR, I believe, just based on the animatronic deterioration mechanic, this one was created by Kench1 on DeviantArt and is creepy as hell. This is basically just a withered Ballora, and honestly I don't know why I didn't look that up on my list, because my usual methods for these is to put in the adjectives for the normal animatronics like Nightmare, Scrap, Phantom, etc. and then just add random creepy objectives when I run out of those, like broken or stylized. But this time I didn't look up withered. I guarantee that there is at least one version of withered Ballora. Actually, yep, plenty. The fans are really good at making animatronics creepier, especially when they're withered. Okay, so you know what, let's just pretend that this number was withered Ballora. There you go. And at 4, Destroyed Ballora. Jesus Christ Superstar, what in the Lord's name is this monstrosity? I thought that Broken Ballora was nightmare fuel, but this is even worse. Look at this face. This is the face that took over the questionable Reddit groups. This is haunting. The look on her face, as if she's staring into the very abyss where your soul used to be. But you've already given it to Scott Cawthon in search of answers, so all she can do is make you suffer. Make you relive your worst memories over and over again. Making you scream from the inside, clawing at the walls of your mind trying to desperately to escape. But you can't. You can't and you won't, because Ballora has you now. And not just any Ballora. This one has seen battle. It knows its weaknesses and has terminated them. There is no saving you now. Now it's you and Ballora forever, watching you suffer and smiling as you do. It wanted this. You wanted this. It's everything you could have ever asked for. But you know, that's just one man's opinion. And at 3, Nightmare Ballora. Nightmare Ballora is a piece of work. Holy freaking shit. With teeth like needles and that signature torn and battered nightmare aesthetic, this is what I expect when I think about a nightmare version of a character we've already seen. However, I'm getting some serious Fwareza from Flash Season 7 vibes here, especially from this image posted onto the FNAF subreddit by user Demolition Inevitable. And the rest of these are terrifying. Even the ones most people would consider bad are actually still messed up. This is the first animatronic on this list that has actually made me feel unsafe. If this wasn't Help Wanted, I wouldn't play it, even less than I play it now. And it too, Scrap Ballora. There are multiple versions of Scrap Ballora, and they're all terrifying. Some more than others, but all worse than the last one in some way. There is only really one thing I find funny about this, and it's the fact that her chest is still there. Like, this character was reassembling herself and thought, yeah, better put thine memories back where they doth belong. Or like, gotta grab me my mommy milkers. Is that too much? Probably not, but I don't care, I'm on antidepressants. There was one from user FTT Heinen on DeviantArt that seems to be the more popular one, and for some reason it's carrying a scythe. I mean, don't get me wrong, scythes are cool, but why? Like, in the lore that you made for this character, why do they have a scythe? And why do they put their boobs back on their body? Like, it's terrifying. Is this trying to get every touch-starved person interested? Because, like, I mean, given the past year, I'd say we're all pretty touch-starved, so there's still the audience for it. Finally, in at number 1, Spider Ballora! Anyone who knows me knows I hate spiders. Big, small, poisonous, venomous, not aggressive. Any form of spider deserves to die and will if it's near me. And while the Havoc puppet is messed up, the spider version of Ballora is literally called Spider Ballora, and I hate it with all of my guts. While a couple of Nightmare Balloras have spider-like legs, this one takes it to a whole new level. Her original form crawling like a spider was already bad enough in my eyes, but now I have to deal with literally 8 eyes, 8 legs, a thorax, and 6 arms. What the hell, man? Why on God's green earth would you create this unholy monstrosity of a creature? This is the kind of thing that even Satan doesn't approve of. When you die and have to walk down the stairs, Satan's gonna hide behind the gate and tell you to keep walking. This is true horror. I don't care what you think. You think that this isn't scary? Good for you, but I'm not sleeping tonight.